Picture this. The last thing you remember before drifting off to sleep was checking your phone one final time. Alarm set for 6:30 a.m. Calendar packed with meetings. Inbox overflowing. To-do list scrolling endlessly. Now imagine deleting all of that. Every digital obligation, every scheduled minute, every artificially lit hour after sunset. What's left? How would you spend your time if survival didn't mean spreadsheets and commutes, but something entirely different? Welcome to 40,000. You are anatomically modern, mentally identical to anyone reading this today. Same brain capacity, same emotional range, same ability to love, create, fear, and dream. But your daily reality bears almost no resemblance to ours. There are no cities on the horizon, no farms stretching across valleys, no roads connecting one settlement to another. The entire human population on Earth numbers perhaps a few million, scattered across vast territories in small, mobile groups. For generations, we've been fed a particular narrative about these ancestors of ours. They were primitive. They struggled constantly. Life was short, brutal, and dominated by the desperate search for food. Every waking hour was consumed by survival. Culture, art, leisure. These were luxuries they couldn't afford. But here's the fascinating twist. When anthropologists began studying the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies in the modern world, they discovered something unexpected. These people, living lifestyles similar to our Paleolithic ancestors, didn't work themselves to exhaustion. Most adults engaged in productive activities for roughly 3 to 6 hours per day. The rest? Leisure, socializing, storytelling, play, rest. This discovery challenges everything we thought we knew about progress. We imagine ourselves as the culmination of human advancement, freed from toil by technology. Yet many of us work far more hours than those primitive ancestors ever did. So what were they actually doing with all that time? Let's follow them through a typical day and find out. Before we begin this journey, I want to invite you to engage with this exploration. If you find these deep dives into human history compelling, consider subscribing. Share in the comments where you're watching from. Maybe you're in New York as dawn breaks, or in Sydney as afternoon fades, or somewhere in between. Every viewer brings a unique perspective to our shared human story. Consciousness returns gradually, not the jarring shock of an alarm piercing through dreams, but a natural emergence guided by light creeping across the sky. Your body has been tracking the sun's position all night through closed eyelids, biological rhythms synchronized with the Earth's rotation in ways we've largely lost. The first sensation is temperature. Cool air against exposed skin, the warmth of bodies pressed close on either side. You're lying on a bed of dried vegetation covered with animal hides, the skins hair side up to trap heat. This isn't your private bedroom. Privacy as a concept doesn't really exist yet. You share this sleeping space with your extended family unit. Perhaps 20 or 30 individuals ranging from infants to elders. Next comes smell. Wood smoke dominates, though it's faded to a faint trace now that the fire has burned low overnight. Beneath that, the organic scent of human bodies living without modern hygiene. This doesn't register as unpleasant. It's just the smell of people, as natural as the pine resin smoke or the earthy musk of the hide beneath you. Someone nearby is already stirring. Sleep patterns in the deep past were likely quite different from ours. Research on modern foraging societies suggests humans may have evolved to sleep in segments. A few hours after dark, then a period of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night, followed by more sleep until dawn. During those wakeful periods, people would talk softly, tend fires, check on children, or simply lie thinking. This meant someone was almost always semi-alert, a crucial safety measure in a world where large predators hunted at night. The person moving now is feeding the fire. You hear the soft scrape of wood being arranged, see the sudden brightness as new fuel catches. Fire maintenance was perhaps the single most vital technology your ancestors possessed. Let it die completely, and you'd face the arduous task of creating it anew through friction methods. Exhausting work that could take hours. Much better to keep it smoldering through the night, with individuals taking turns adding fuel. As flames grow, more people begin waking, children first. They seem to emerge from sleep already in motion, ready to explore and play. Parents rise more slowly, bodies stiff from a night on the ground despite the bedding. But there's no rush. This is critical to understand. The entire concept of hurrying, of being late, of racing against the clock. These ideas don't exist. Your day unfolds according to the sun, the weather, your hunger, the seasons. Time is measured in natural cycles, not minutes. Before anyone ventures far, someone checks the surroundings. What changed while the group slept? Fresh tracks near camp. Weather shifting. These morning assessments are survival tactics honed over countless generations. Early humans became extraordinary naturalists by necessity, capable of reading landscapes with a sophistication that would shame most modern outdoors people. They could identify hundreds of plant species by sight and knew which parts were edible and when. They could examine animal tracks and tell you not just what species passed by, but approximately when, whether the animal was healthy or injured, if it was traveling alone or with others. They could read weather in clouds and wind, predict resource availability by observing bird behavior and insect activity. This wasn't specialized knowledge possessed by a few experts. It was common literacy, as fundamental as reading and writing are to us. Here's something that might surprise you. Your Stone Age ancestors didn't have breakfast as we understand it. They didn't have designated meal times at all. Instead, they ate when food was available and hunger demanded it. This wasn't chaos. It was a perfectly rational adaptation to their environment. As morning progresses and stomachs begin rumbling, people reach for whatever food is on hand. Perhaps there's leftover venison from 2 days ago, hanging in the cooler recesses of the rock shelter, preserved by autumn's chill. The meat is tough now, requiring serious jaw work, but it's packed with the protein and fat your body craves after a night's fast. Beside the meat, there might be hazelnuts collected last week, their shells cracking satisfyingly between your molars. A pouch of dried berries gathered during summer's abundance, now wrinkled but intensely sweet. Most valuable of all, roots slow roasted overnight in the fire's residual heat, their complex starches broken down into digestible sugars. This process of cooking, transforming inedible or barely edible plants into nutritious food through heat, may rank among humanity's most revolutionary innovations. It effectively doubled or tripled the number of plant species our ancestors could safely consume. Toxic tubers became staple foods. Seeds that would pass through the digestive system unchanged became valuable nutrition when ground and heated. The evidence for this diverse diet comes from multiple archaeological sources. Coprolites, fossilized feces, reveal an astonishing variety of consumed materials. seeds from dozens of plant species, pollen, microscopic fragments of roots and leaves, even insect remains. Dental calculus, the hardened plaque on ancient teeth, tells similar stories. Plant starches from across the spectrum, fibers that were chewed to extract moisture, traces of everything from wild grains to root vegetables. What emerges is a picture of remarkable dietary flexibility. Your ancestors weren't specialized eaters dependent on one or two food sources. They were opportunistic generalists capable of exploiting virtually anything edible in their environment. Coastal groups ate fish, shellfish, seaweed, and sea mammals alongside terrestrial plants. Inland forest dwellers consumed deer, wild boar, nuts, berries, roots, and mushrooms. Groups near rivers ate fish, waterfowl, aquatic plants, and the land animals that came to drink. This flexibility was crucial. Environments shift, seasons change, animal migrations follow unpredictable patterns. A group dependent on just one or two food sources would starve when those resources became scarce. But a group capable of eating 50 different things, they'd always find something. As people eat, they don't do so alone. Food is inherently social, shared and distributed according to complex but well understood customs. The hunter who made yesterday's kill doesn't keep most of the meat. In fact, he might eat less than others. This is insurance, risk pooling embedded in social practice. Share your successful hunt today, and when someone else makes a kill tomorrow, they'll share with you. Children dart between adults, receiving bites from multiple hands. Nobody hoards from the young. There's always enough, or if there isn't, adults eat less to ensure children are fed. If you asked most people to describe a typical Stone Age day, they'd probably paint a picture of non-stop hunting. Groups of men constantly pursuing mammoths, engaged in dramatic life-or-death struggles with megafauna. It makes for exciting movies, but it's largely fiction. The reality: hunting was the exception, gathering was the rule. On any given day, the majority of calories consumed came from plants, roots, tubers, nuts, seeds, berries, leaves. The exact percentage varied by season and location, but for most human populations most of the time, plant foods were what kept people alive. This wasn't because our ancestors preferred vegetables over meat. It was simple mathematics. A successful hunt might provide enough meat to feed the group for several days, but hunts failed far more often than they succeeded. Animals are fast, unpredictable, and dangerous. They require hours of tracking, careful coordination, and considerable luck. Plants, meanwhile, stay exactly where you left them last season. They grow in predictable patterns that anyone with sufficient knowledge can learn to read. So while hunters were out hoping for glory, the majority of the group was engaged in the actual work of survival, methodically walking the landscape, reading signs invisible to the untrained eye, collecting the foods that would end up in tonight's meal. Imagine yourself on such an expedition. It's mid-morning. The sun has climbed high enough to burn off the mist. You set out with several others. An experienced elder who knows the plant locations better than anyone. A younger person learning the knowledge, perhaps your own child, strapped to your back in a sling made from softened hide. You're not wandering randomly. You're following a mental map built over years of observation. The oak grove 3 miles north should have acorns ready now. The patch of wild onions near the stream will be past prime, but the cattails beyond it will have edible roots. If luck favors you, perhaps a beehive with honey, maybe bird eggs. The walk itself is no casual stroll. You're covering perhaps 5 to 10 miles today, much of it over terrain that would challenge modern hikers. Rocky slopes, thick underbrush, streams to ford, hills to climb. You're doing all this while carrying a child, plus your tools. But gathering differs fundamentally from hunting. It's not about adrenaline or drama. It's about attention. You're reading the landscape with an intensity most modern people never experience. The slight soil discoloration indicating tubers below. Animal tracks suggesting fruit trees nearby. The specific sunlight angle revealing which hillside has ripe berries. A fire-hardened digging stick, woven baskets, a leather bag, maybe a stone knife. The elder stops at seemingly unremarkable ground, but she sees something you're still learning to recognize. A particular grass type that always grows near edible roots. She drives her digging stick down, probing carefully. 3 inches deep, she strikes something solid. Working the stick around it, loosening soil, she reaches in and pulls up a tuber the size of your fist. But she doesn't just harvest. She teaches. She tells the younger person about the time her grandmother got violently ill from eating a similar-looking root with slightly different leaves. She points out the distinction. 3 veins instead of 5. That tiny difference means the difference between nutrition and death. This is education without classrooms. The younger person will learn hundreds of these lessons over the years. By adulthood, they'll know perhaps 300 plant species, by sight, by season, by location. They'll know which are edible, which medicinal, which deadly. They'll know when to harvest each, how to prepare it, what it's useful for. This knowledge base is staggering, far exceeding what most modern people know about the plants in their own neighborhoods. Hours pass in this rhythm, walking, observing, collecting. Your baskets grow heavier with wild grapes, seeds from grass that will be ground into flour, bark from a specific tree that makes fever-reducing tea when boiled. The elder collects this last item carefully, never taking so much that she damages the tree. She learned long ago that sustainable harvesting ensures resources return next season. The groups that learned this lesson survived. Those that didn't faced starvation. By early afternoon, you're miles from camp. Legs tired, shoulders aching from basket weight. But there's something almost meditative about this work. No rush, no pressure. Just the steady rhythm of walking and gathering, the sun's warmth, birds calling overhead. You're completely present in ways modern humans rarely experience. Every sense engaged, listening for animals, watching for water shimmer ahead, smelling the air for smoke that might indicate other groups nearby. Finally, late afternoon, the group turns back toward camp. Baskets full with food that will feed everyone tonight. You've walked perhaps 8 miles total. Your body aches. The child has been fussing, wanting to be fed. But you're satisfied. This is important work, the kind that keeps everyone alive. When you return, there will be no fanfare. Nobody celebrates the gatherers the way they celebrate successful hunts. But everyone knows the reality. Hunters often return empty-handed. Gatherers bring food, reliable, nutritious, life-sustaining food. Tomorrow you'll go out and do it again. Back at camp, a different kind of work is underway. The rhythmic tap, tap, tap of stone striking stone. The universal sound of tool-making echoing across millennia. Someone sits on a flat rock, hammerstone in one hand, flint in the other. Every few seconds, a strike at precisely the right angle sends a flake spinning off. This isn't occasional work. It's daily maintenance as essential as eating. Tools don't last forever. Yesterday's spear point chipped on bone. Last week's scraper has dulled. In a world without stores, without the ability to simply buy replacements, you make your tools, or you don't survive. Stone tool making, what archaeologists call knapping, requires years to master. It demands an understanding of stone properties bordering on intimate knowledge. Different rocks fracture differently. Flint is predictable, obsidian is sharp but fragile, chert is reliable but harder to work. You must know where to find quality stone, how to test it, how to recognize it before investing hours of work. Watch an expert work and you'll witness expertise acquired over a lifetime. They're not randomly hitting rocks together. They're reading the stone, seeing fracture lines invisible to untrained eyes. Each strike is calculated. Too hard and the piece shatters. Too soft and nothing happens. The angle must be exact. The impact point precisely chosen. Its geometry and physics executed through intuition and muscle memory. Nearby, others work on different materials. Someone carves an antler spear point, lighter and more flexible than stone, less likely to break on impact. The work is tedious, producing a constant scraping sound. Thin antler curls accumulate at their feet. Someone else scrapes a deer hide stretched across a frame, removing every trace of fat and membrane. The hide must then be treated, either smoked over fire or rubbed with a brain tissue mixture that prevents stiffening when dry. The brain tanning process is chemistry without laboratories, developed through centuries of trial and error. Someone discovered that brains contain exactly the right compounds to preserve leather. That knowledge passed down parent to child for generations. Another person uses a bone awl to punch holes in the treated hide, threading sinew through to create garments. The stitching is crude by modern standards, but remarkably effective. These clothes will be warm, durable, flexible, lasting seasons or years. What's striking is the specialization. Not everyone excels at everything. One person has spent decades mastering stonework and is genuinely expert. Another excels at bone carving. The best leather worker in the group gains status that transcends simple physical strength. When her skills are needed, others contribute food or assistance with other tasks in exchange. Everywhere, children observe. An 8-year-old boy sits near the stone napper, attempting to replicate movements with his own small stones. Most attempts fail, producing nothing useful, but encouragement continues. Occasionally, the expert takes the boy's hand, guides his strikes, demonstrates proper angles. This is education, constant observation and practice under expert guidance. By age 15, the boy might achieve competence at basic tool making. By 25, if talented and dedicated, he might become expert enough to teach others. Knowledge flows forward another generation, each adding small refinements, tiny improvements that accumulate over centuries into technological revolutions. As afternoon light begins shifting toward evening, shadows lengthening and colors draining from the landscape, something profound happens. The group begins contracting inward, activity drawing toward the same thing that has defined human evenings for hundreds of thousands of years: fire. This isn't just a tool, it's a boundary inside the circle of light and warmth. Us. Outside, everything else. The open landscape that felt manageable in daylight becomes something different after dark. Depth perception fails. Predators that spend the day hiding begin to move. So humans retreat to the fire's protective sphere. People drift back from their day's activities. Gatherers return with armloads of wood and bundled plants. Hunters straggle in, sometimes triumphant with meat, sometimes empty-handed and silent. Children who spend the day in games and exploration tighten their radius, pulled by the same invisible gravity. The noise level shifts. Daytime work is all scraping, chopping, calling across distances. Evening is more contained. The crackle of wood, soft thuds of tool-making, murmured voices as people settle into the glow. Before anyone truly rests, there's one more job: build-in sleeping spots. Beds aren't luxury, they're survival technology. The ground is cold, damp, full of insects and heat-sucking stone. Someone clears the worst debris, then lays down dried grasses, reeds, leaves, anything trapping air and shedding water. On top, softer plants, maybe moss, then animal skins, hair side up for insulation. While bedding is prepared, the evening meal begins. If you imagine early humans constantly snacking all day, evidence doesn't support that. For many groups, the largest meal clustered around nightfall. During the day, people might grab berries here, crack a bone for marrow there, eat a few nuts. But the full accounting of the day's success happens in the evening around the fire. Food isn't just eaten, it's transformed. Meat roasted or boiled, bones split for fatty marrow, organs cooked quickly before spoiling, plant foods pounded, peeled, ground. Someone tosses roots into ashes, another turns meat skewers. Someone keeps the fire at optimal intensity, adding logs at precise moments. This isn't chaos, it's practiced choreography. Distribution is social performance. Who gets the first piece? Best cuts. Does the successful hunter keep most meat? Or does custom dictate elders first, small children next, then everyone else? Different groups handled this differently, but almost all understood one truth. You don't survive long in foraging society if you're selfish at the big meal. While hands are busy, mouths are too. Firelight conversations are where social life thickens. During the day, communication is practical, shouted across distances. At night, volume drops. Content changes. People debrief the day. A hunter explains how the antelope bolted unexpectedly. A gatherer laughs about tipping over a berry basket. Someone mentions a minor conflict, a harsh word, a broken tool, and the group smooths it over while chewing. There's planning too. When to move camp? Who will scout that distant ridge? Whether to follow herds north or stay near the river longer? These aren't formal counsels, but patterns emerge. Some speak more, others listen and nod, influencing flow with single quiet remarks. And then there are stories. Once stomachs are full and hunger's sharp edge is gone, tone changes again. Someone might start with a familiar tale about an ancestor killing a monstrous lion, or when the river rose so high it carried away half the camp. These stories aren't mere entertainment, they're memory storage. In a world without writing, stories carry maps. Which valley has bitter-tasting roots, safe only if boiled twice, where dangerous spirits or sudden storms dwell? Under the same firelight, eyes might turn upward to the star-filled sky. We can't know when humans first wondered about those lights, but it would be strange if no one did. Long before modern constellation names, people likely traced shapes with fingers, connecting stars into animals, ancestors, paths. Maybe they decided that a bright star was a giant creature's eye watching over them, or that the Milky Way was a path taken by souls after death. Gradually, conversations thin. The fire drops from bright flame to glowing coals, harsh oranges, softening to deep reds. Someone adds one last log, not for cooking now, but to keep embers alive until morning. Sparks rise and vanish into darkness, briefly imitating stars before extinguishing. People find their places on the bedding. Children wedge between adults, heads tucked against warm shoulders. An elder pulls hide up around their neck, hands folded under their cheek. A hunter stretches out facing the fire, one arm draped over a dog that has decided to sleep there tonight. By around 40,000 years ago, the domestication process seems underway in some places. Wolves, slightly more tolerant of humans, less fearful, willing to hang around camp edges, scavenging bones and scraps. Over generations, those tamer wolves may have been tolerated, even encouraged. They're noisy when strangers approach. They smell predators before you do. They follow tracks. At night, they earn their place repeatedly. Curled at the firelight's edge or pressed against human bodies, they add warmth. Their ears twitch at faint sounds no human would notice. A growl, raised head, sudden bark. They're an early warning system. Night sounds settle into layers. Nearby, the fires crack and sigh, soft breathing rhythm, occasional dream murmurs. Further off, small animal rustles, a nightbird's distant call. Farther still, hyenas' long eerie whoops, a lion's deep roar declaring territory. These distant threats are terrifying but familiar, woven into every childhood's background. People learn to distinguish danger by sound, the difference between a hunting roar and a frustrated one, between curious rustling and an approaching charge. Someone always stays half awake. Vigilance becomes rotating duty. Some people are natural light sleepers, others take turns, waking to toss on wood, listening for wrong rustles in grass. The camp is arranged to slow approaching threats. Densest brush cleared away, thorny branches piled at key points, sleeping spots clustered, so one person startling awake can rouse others in seconds. Under all that, the sky keeps turning. Stars wheel slowly toward the horizon. The moon climbs or sinks, depending on phase. Clouds pass, sometimes covering light, sometimes revealing more. Some fall asleep quickly, exhaustion winning over anxiety. Others linger in that liminal space between waking and sleep, thoughts wandering between the day's memories and half-formed images from fire and stars. Eventually, even the last watchers drift inward. The fire slumps into a bed of shimmering coals. Dogs settle heads on paws. For a few hours, this tiny human cluster is as vulnerable as they will ever be. Eyes closed, weapons out of reach, minds in other worlds. And yet, in another sense, they have never been safer. They are wrapped in protection layers they built themselves. Knowledge of where to camp, a carefully maintained fire, beds keeping the cold ground at bay, a circle of kin who will wake if one cries out, the warning growl of an animal that chose to live alongside them. So after all this, what did early humans actually do all day? They worked, walked miles finding roots and berries, hauled meat back to camp, shaped stone until hands ached, mended, fed children, watched the fire, kept an eye out for predators at the darkness's edge. But that wasn't all they did. They also sat, stared into flames doing nothing at all, watched clouds drift and migrating animal lines pass along horizons, told stories so slowly a single tale might last several evenings. They played, not just children but adults too, mock fights, little contests, teasing games with pebbles and sticks and bones. They sang, traced patterns on cave walls and their own skin. They rested. Their lives were hard, but not how we often imagine. Not a non-stop scramble from dawn to dusk, but pulses of effort, surrounded by long stretches of low, quiet time. A few hours of intense work, then a lot of simply being together, moving with seasons, moving with light. That balance is what we tend to forget. Here we are with machines doing our grinding and lifting, with lights turning night into day, with more information in our pockets than any hunter-gatherer could imagine. Yet somehow many of us end up with less true leisure than they had, less unstructured time, fewer evenings where we simply sit and watch the world without checking clocks. The irony is profound. We've built tools to free our time, then filled that time back up with noise. Your Paleolithic ancestors never scrolled, never answered emails by firelight. When the sun went down, there were only a few options: talk, listen, make, dream, or sleep. Their attention belonged to the people around them, to the flames in front of them, to the stars overhead. Strip away technology and the basic things that mattered then still matter now. Community, the circle of people who know your stories, who would share their last scrap of food with you, who would stand beside you when danger came too close. Today that might be family, friends, an online community. The shape has changed, but the need hasn't. Creativity, the first carved bone pendant, the first handprint on stone, the first rhythm tapped on a log. None of it helped catch more animals, but it made life richer. It turned bare survival into a story worth telling. That impulse to make something unnecessary and beautiful is still one of the most human things we do. Nature, for almost all our history, we woke and slept with the light. We learned seasons by heart. We could read landscapes like we now read text. Even if you live in a city, part of your brain still quiets when you hear rain on a window or wind in trees or waves hitting shore. Those sounds are older than language, older than Homo sapiens. Purpose. Early humans didn't have 5-year plans, but they had reasons to get up. Feed the children, help the group, keep the fire alive one more night. Meaning was woven into daily tasks. Our purposes may be more abstract now, but underneath, the same question persists. Who am I doing this for, and why? When we look back at their days, at the walking, the watching, the talking, the work broken up by laughter and silence, we're not seeing a lost world we can never touch again. We're seeing a template, a reminder that a good human day has a certain rhythm, effort and ease, noise and quiet, togetherness and a little solitude. As you finish reading this, you're doing something profoundly ancient, letting the day end, stepping away from the hunt of obligations and back toward the fire. If you've enjoyed this exploration into our shared past, consider subscribing to this channel so you don't miss the next journey through history. Leave a comment telling us where you're reading from, what landscape is outside your own window tonight. Desert, forest, city lights, mountain air. It all becomes part of this extended circle. For now, you don't need to do anything at all. Just imagine this. The fire in your ancestors' camp has burned down to deep, steady coals. Most of the group is already asleep, curled under furs, breath slow and even. Someone adds one last piece of wood, more from habit than necessity. Above them, above you, the same moon drifts across the sky. The same constellations look down, slightly shifted by time, but still recognizably themselves. 40,000 years ago, a child blinked up at those stars, fighting sleep for one more story. Someone reached over, smoothed their hair, promised that tomorrow's work could wait until morning. Tonight, you share that same human need. To stop, to be safe, to let the mind loosen its grip on the day. These ancestors of ours weren't so different from us. They felt the same anxieties about their children's futures. They experienced the same joy at a shared meal. They knew the same comfort of familiar voices in the darkness. They understood that survival wasn't just about individual strength, but about the bonds connecting one person to another. Archaeological evidence shows they cared for disabled members of their communities, individuals who survived for years despite injuries that would have been fatal without group support. They buried their dead with care, sometimes placing flowers or meaningful objects in graves. They created art not because it helped them survive, but because beauty itself became a kind of survival. The lessons from their daily lives aren't about romanticizing the past or rejecting modern comforts. Rather, they remind us that human thriving has always required more than just meeting basic needs. It requires connection, purpose, creativity, and time to simply be, without constant productivity demands. Time to watch the world without agenda. Time to build relationships that can't be quantified or optimized. Perhaps the most valuable insight from studying Paleolithic daily life is this: the things that made life meaningful 40,000 years ago, community, story, craft, play, rest, wonder, are still the things that make life meaningful today. The packaging has changed dramatically. The essence hasn't changed at all. The work can wait until morning. The world can wait until morning. For now, rest under the same ancient sky that has watched over humanity since the beginning.